just wanted to mention one kind of off-gridding that really doesn't sort of even get under the radar all the time, and that is living in a boat. Many years ago I used to do a bit of yacht racing because my boss was right into yachts and yacht racing, and there were a couple at the boat club the main boat club he used to go to, and they lived on a boat. The boat club was charging them something like $80 a week. The only thing they'd done there was basically get fresh water and use the showers in the place. And I think they were getting ripped off. One of the boat club meetings, they decided up the rent even higher, and they just sort of sitting there thinking, what is the point? But there are other people around who do live in a boat off grid, but what they do, instead of having a mooring point with a dearer club, they find a cheaper club, and a lot of the time they're not even at that mooring point. Some of them ain't at that mooring point for a massive amount of time. Some of them may not even have a real obvious mooring point at all. They might not even be a member of a club, because some of them spend a lot of the time just literally, well, out at sea all the time. And one bloke I worked with one day, he was telling me that he had a boat and it would cost him around about $80 in diesel to go from basically Melbourne area sort of right up to Sydney, because he could live on it completely. He had sails on it, so he could sail most of the time. There's some yachts that only have sails, and there's others that have a sail and a motor. And he used to say that basically he could more or less sail the whole way, almost the whole way, and just use his motor for basically a bit of propulsion in the not so good times, or when he definitely had to move it or whatever, but more so as like a generator, more or less. And by utilising the sails as much as possible and keeping the engine switched off, and you know, plenty of these people have solar panels on their boats as well. And another option is a wind turbine. There's a Jessica, someone or another, forget her name. She was a young girl who circumnavigated the globe, one of the youngest ones at the time. This is a few years ago. She's an Australian girl, and she had one on her little yacht. And as she was coming in, it was on TV as she was coming back into Sydney. And yeah, she was sort of had that there, and it was spinning around like anything. But that's quite an option, that you can use wind power by actually placing a wind turbine on your boat, and they sit there so that they don't go and whack them on the mast or anything stupid like that. They have them independently sitting there on their own, sort of up near the back of the boat. And yeah, I mean, if you know enough about wind turbines, you can really suck some power out of some of those. And when you think hard about all this stuff, between wind power off a wind turbine, solar power, and the odd solar cooker, one of the big things you got to do is carry food. And if you're a smart enough little cookie, you'll know about a certain episode of Doomsday Preppers where a bloke's got a boat there, and he actually desalinates the water through a filter of a type, and it lets the water through and leaves the salt behind. And of course there's the other obvious one, which is desalination, and you could use solar desalination, but generally speaking, a lot of ships, they use desalination derived off of the heat of the exhaust. So yeah, I mean that's a real option, but it's certainly not one that's really looked into big time. And the other thing is, on a prepper's point of view, it's very beneficial for the odd prepper who does have a boat or, you know, is intending to bug out in a boat, because quite simply, when there's chaos going on, it usually happens to be going on land, i.e., you know, New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina and all the looting, the LA riots, a lot of these sort of things happen on land, and when there's these big road closures and they block this off and that and da-da-da-da-da and volcanoes and things like that, that's all going on land. And you get in a boat, what, are they going to put like a big bloody, what, like a big fence across the front of the river in a few seconds notice because they closed the road, and then they're going to turn around and close the waterway? What are they going to do, physically put a fence across the front of the Mississippi or something? I mean, they may have this in place in you know, at the mouth of the river, I don't know, but you wouldn't really expect it with smaller rivers, that because I've never seen anything like that. The only thing that will screw you up is a weir, then you're really buggered, or some sort of dam, in other words. But, you know, and then the other thing is, when it's all scrambling like hell on deck, on land rather, how many water police are going to be seriously running around when all the help is needed on land? They'll probably take them off the boats and say, hey, look, come out here and, like, you know, set up tents, help us unload medical staff, cart food around, set up, you know, water, start handing out water bottles, drive this truck, whatever, you know. So while water police are out there, it's sort of an emergency situation. They're probably not going to be really allocating a lot of resources to making sure your little boat ain't slipping down the river and away out to the open sea to get away from the chaos happening on land. But yeah, hopefully I can talk to some people who do, but I mean, it'll probably be a long time off until I ever get around to that. But yeah.